Kevin Stefanski made a 6-month decision that Ross Tucker says should haunt the Browns. For half a year, Shedeur Sanders was denied critical first-team reps, the kind of repetitions that define whether a young quarterback develops or stalls. Yet once Stefanski finally handed Sanders the ball, it took just 1 week to fix what scouts saw as a serious liability in his game. The fact that this transformation happened so fast didn't just shock fans. It infuriated analysts like Tucker, who saw it as clear evidence of coaching mismanagement.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
By the time Sanders stepped on the field, he wasn't just ready. He was controlled, sharp, and mentally locked in. That kind of performance, right out of the gate, suggested this wasn't luck. This was preparedness meeting opportunity, delayed only by hesitation at the top. Tucker's frustration speaks to a bigger issue in the NFL, the reluctance to trust raw but talented players. And in Sanders' case, the Browns may have paid the price for that hesitation with months of lost development. So let's talk about what just happened, because Ross Tucker absolutely torched the Cleveland Browns coaching staff, and he didn't stutter. In one of the more brutal critiques we've seen from a national analyst this season, Tucker laid out a scathing breakdown of how Browns head coach Kevin Stefanski handled, or more accurately, mishandled, rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders. And it all boils down to one thing: 6 wasted months. 6 months where Shedeur Sanders didn't get meaningful first-team reps. 6 months of sitting behind the scenes, running scout team plays, doing mental reps, staying ready in case of injury, but never really being developed. And then, they hand him the start with barely a week of preparation. Suddenly, the guy everyone overlooked comes out looking like a composed, calculated pro. Tucker pointed out straight away, if Sanders could fix his biggest mechanical flaw, pocket bailing, in just 7 days with focused coaching, then what exactly were the Browns doing for the half year before that? That's not a rhetorical question. It's the entire issue. Because what Ross Tucker saw in Shedeur's first NFL start wasn't just talent, it was polish. He saw a young quarterback who displayed poise, calm pocket movement, smart decision-making, and elite arm talent. Not rookie flashes, not raw promise, but fully functional, starting-caliber quarterback play. And that's what makes the Browns' decision so much worse. They didn't just wait too long. They actively delayed the development of a guy who clearly had the mental and physical tools from the beginning. A quarterback who didn't just show up, but showed out, while the coaching staff spent 6 months basically acting like he was a long-term side project. Ross Tucker didn't leave room for misinterpretation. He said it like it was. They wasted time. Valuable time that could have been spent building chemistry with the starters. Time that could have been used to tailor a game plan around Sanders' skill set. Time that could have accelerated his progression toward becoming a franchise quarterback. And the worst part? None of this had to happen. Because the Browns didn't stumble into fixing Sanders' game under pressure. They knew exactly what the issue was: his tendency to bail from the pocket. And they fixed it fast. That tells you all you need to know. They had the tools, they had the coaching, they had the player. And they still chose to wait. Let's call it what it is: a strategic failure. Tucker emphasized that quarterback development isn't just about talent. It's about trust. It's about early investment. And it's about giving your young players real opportunities to grow. Not lip service. Not motivational quotes in the locker room. Actual snaps. Actual preparation. Actual belief. And that belief, it wasn't there. Because if it was, Sanders would have been getting starter reps long before this. He would have had game reps, real experience against live defenses, and a chance to build rhythm with the offense. Instead, the Browns tried to contain him, and now they're the ones scrambling to adjust because he exceeded every expectation with a fraction of the preparation. That kind of performance doesn't just show potential. It shows that he was ready. Maybe not perfect, maybe not a finished product, but ready to play and ready to win. And what does it say about the Browns' development philosophy that they couldn't see that? Tucker wasn't just criticizing the timeline. He was questioning the judgment. If a rookie quarterback can correct a key issue in 7 days, what were they waiting for? What was holding them back? Because from where he's sitting, and frankly, from where a lot of fans are sitting, it looks like they underestimated Shedeur Sanders from the beginning. That underestimation may have cost Sanders valuable experience. It may have slowed his growth. And for a franchise like Cleveland, where quarterback development has been a revolving door for years, it might have delayed the best shot they've had in a long time to finally stabilize the position. But here's the silver lining. Sanders made the delay irrelevant the second he stepped on the field. Despite everything, limited reps, minimal prep, late trust, he delivered. He showed leadership. He handled pressure. He displayed maturity far beyond what anyone expected. And that's where Ross Tucker really doubled down. Because Sanders didn't just flash traits. He embodied them. He owned the moment. The mental toughness. The work ethic. The leadership. Tucker went out of his way to highlight those things because they're not easy to find in a rookie. You can coach mechanics. You can fix footwork. But you can't manufacture poise. You can't fake presence. And you can't teach someone how to carry a locker room with that level of composure. That's the kind of intangible that makes a quarterback a franchise quarterback. And it's the kind of thing that should have been nurtured early, not discovered in desperation. So now, the conversation shifts. Because Ross Tucker isn't just throwing shots for fun, he's sounding the alarm. If Shedeur Sanders continues on this path, if he keeps stacking performances and proving himself every week, then this 6-month delay becomes a much bigger indictment of Stefanski and the Browns' coaching staff. Because if they had trusted Sanders earlier, he might already be further along. He might already have more wins, more chemistry with the team, more of everything. And let's be clear, this isn't just a rookie who got hot. This is a quarterback who, by all appearances, understands what it takes to win at the NFL level. Someone who learns fast, responds to coaching, and elevates the offense when given the chance. That should have been obvious in camp. That should have been recognized during the preseason. And if it wasn't, that's on the staff, not the player. Ross Tucker's breakdown exposes the core issue. When you delay development for no good reason, you don't just lose time, you risk losing momentum. And in the NFL, momentum is everything. It's how good teams become great. It's how talent turns into wins. It's how rookies become leaders. The Browns waited. And now they're trying to catch up to a timeline they themselves slowed down. The only question left is, did they learn their lesson? Because the pressure isn't on Shedeur Sanders anymore. He proved he can deliver. The pressure is on Kevin Stefanski and the entire offensive staff to support him the right way from this point forward. Give him the reps, give him the trust, build around him, and stop managing him like a long-term experiment when he's already showing short-term results. This is how quarterback disasters happen. You wait too long, you hesitate, you second-guess, and then you wonder why nothing ever clicks. If Shedeur keeps improving, this delay will be the chapter everyone talks about. The moment when the Browns nearly stalled their own progress by refusing to recognize what was right in front of them. Let us know how you feel about it. Was Stefanski right to hold Sanders back? Or did he completely misread the room? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this debate isn't going away. And if you're into breakdowns that pull no punches, subscribe for more. Like the video, share it with your crew, and keep it locked. We're just scratching the surface. And here's where things really start to spiral, because this isn't just about Shedeur Sanders anymore. It's about the system. It's about the Cleveland Browns being the latest case study in how NFL franchises can mismanage talent right under their own roof. Ross Tucker didn't just raise a red flag. He launched a flare into the night sky. His message was loud and clear. If you can identify and correct a quarterback's major flaw in a single week, you don't get to act like he needed 6 months to be ready. You don't get to pretend like you were carefully grooming a future star when the truth is, you had him sitting in developmental purgatory while your season slowly unraveled. Let's back up and look at the full arc of this. Shedeur Sanders, a highly discussed rookie with undeniable college pedigree, walks into the NFL with a label, raw but promising. The kind of player who, with the right coaching and some time, might become something special. Fast forward to his first real NFL start. And what does he do? He comes out looking more composed than half the league starters. He navigates pressure like a veteran. He doesn't panic. He doesn't revert to bad habits. He stays in the pocket, makes smart reads, delivers the ball with timing and precision, and suddenly everyone watching has the same question. Why did it take so long for this kid to get a chance? Ross Tucker had the answer. It didn't need to take this long. It shouldn't have. Because when a quarterback shows this much growth after 1 week of proper attention, when he fixes his biggest mechanical issue in that short of a window, it means the potential was always there. The issue wasn't with Sanders' development. The issue was that the Browns never started the development process until they had no choice. And it shows. Every successful NFL quarterback has a turning point, a moment where they either sink or swim. For some, it comes early with reps and experience. For others, it comes late, usually because the coaching staff was afraid to let them fail. And in that fear, you delay greatness. You stall momentum. You risk wasting a career before it even begins. Tucker's rant doesn't just highlight a bad decision. It exposes a pattern of teams being too conservative, too calculated, too focused on readiness, instead of seeing what's actually in front of them. In Shedeur's case, what was in front of them was a player who brought leadership, maturity, football IQ, and a willingness to work. Everything coaches beg for in a young quarterback. And yet, they put that on the back burner for half a season. And don't forget, the Browns weren't in a stable quarterback situation. It's not like Shedeur was sitting behind a Pro Bowler with a hot hand. There were open questions, inconsistency, uncertainty. The opportunity was right there for the taking, and the Browns still held back. Why? Ross Tucker's point is that it probably wasn't about readiness. It was about misjudgment, about a staff that didn't see what they had until it smacked them in the face. That kind of mistake isn't just costly, it's potentially catastrophic. Because if Shedeur hadn't performed the way he did, if he hadn't been mentally sharp enough to rise above the lack of reps, this would have been written off as a failed experiment, not a missed opportunity. But because Shedeur did perform, the entire dynamic changes. Now it's a what-if scenario. What if he had been getting first-team snaps from the start? What if they'd invested in him earlier? What if the coaching staff had trusted their eyes instead of their depth chart? These are the questions that don't go away. Not for Stefanski, not for the front office, and not for the fans, who are now watching a quarterback mature in real time and wondering how far along he could already be if someone had simply said, "Let's give him a shot." And credit where it's due, Shedeur didn't blink. That's what makes this even more damning for the Browns. He stepped into a chaotic situation with minimal prep and looked like the most prepared guy on the field. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when a player has the right mentality from day one and just needs a team to meet him there. Tucker noted the poise, the pocket movement, the leadership. These are traits that don't come from riding the bench. They come from someone who's been preparing quietly, waiting for the door to open. The fact that he was able to execute at that level speaks volumes, not just about him, but about the opportunity that was nearly lost. The Browns didn't believe. Shedeur did. And now they're scrambling to recalibrate, as they should. Because the only thing more dangerous than missing on a quarterback is misusing one. If Sanders is the real deal, and all signs so far suggest he is, then Cleveland's coaching staff has to own the fact that they sat on that potential for months. And this brings us to a bigger point. Development isn't just about skill refinement. It's about confidence, representatives' chemistry, leadership. And you don't build any of that from the sideline. You build it in the game, under the lights, against real competition. By denying Shedeur those reps early, the Browns didn't just delay his timeline. They disrupted their own. Now they're behind schedule, trying to fast-track trust, rapport, and game readiness that could have been building since training camp. And if Sanders continues to perform, this entire first half of the season becomes a cautionary tale. You had the guy. You just didn't play him. That's what will stick. That's what people will remember. Especially if this turns into a long-term success story. Because then, every snap he didn't take will feel like a lost opportunity to shape the franchise's future just a little bit sooner. So yes, Ross Tucker blasted the Browns. And honestly, They earned it. They sat on gold and acted like it was a paperweight. Now, the only path forward is full commitment. No more hesitation. No more week-to-week questions. If Shedeur Sanders is your guy, and he's showing every sign that he is, you don't ease into that. You build around it. You adapt. You evolve. You support. Because if you don't, you're not just failing the quarterback, you're failing the team. 2. The conversation has shifted permanently. This is no longer about whether Sanders has potential. He's shown the potential. Now it's about how the Browns respond. Do they trust him going forward? Do they correct the mistakes of the first 6 months? Or do they fall back into old patterns, hoping things work themselves out? Tucker made it clear. Development is not passive. You have to engage with it. You have to be intentional. And above all, you have to recognize when a player is ready, whether it fits your calendar or not. Shedeur was ready. And now that he's got the spotlight, the Browns better not fumble this twice. And just when you think the Browns have learned from their mistakes, they haven't. That's the energy Ross Tucker brought when he dropped his scathing take. He wasn't just reacting to a rookie playing well. He was reacting to a rookie exposing a system that didn't believe in him until it was too late. And that's what makes this moment feel so electric and, honestly, so frustrating. Because let's break it down again. Shedeur Sanders didn't just look good in his first NFL start. He looked composed, calculated, and controlled. That is not normal. Not for a rookie. Not after barely getting meaningful first-team reps. And certainly not after being shoved to the back of the quarterback depth chart for 6 months. Ross Tucker didn't speculate. He diagnosed. His entire point was that the Browns didn't just mismanage a young quarterback. They might have stunted his early development for no real reason at all. And then, when their hands were forced, they got lucky. Because Shedeur rose to the occasion like he had been preparing for this the entire time. Which, by the way, he had. Mentally, physically, emotionally, he was ready. The coaching staff just wasn't. That's the brutal truth behind this entire storyline. It's not that Shedeur Sanders suddenly became great. It's that he was always better than they gave him credit for. He was always capable of being the guy. But they didn't trust it. They didn't test it. They didn't try. Until they had no choice. And now? Now they want to ride the wave like they planned it all along. That's the part Ross Tucker really hammered, because it wasn't just about the timing. It was about the philosophy, the decision-making process that somehow failed to recognize what was right in front of them. Think about how much more dangerous Shedeur could be right now if he had gotten those training camp reps with the starters. If he had built real chemistry with the first-team offensive line. If the offense had been designed around his skill, set from the beginning. Instead, he's trying to fast-track months of development in real time, under real pressure, in live games that matter. And he's succeeding. But let's be clear, he shouldn't have to do this alone. He shouldn't have to overcome a coaching delay and prove himself every single snap just because someone upstairs didn't want to disrupt the status quo. This is how teams lose quarterbacks. Not because of talent. Not because of effort. But because of mismanagement, the kind Ross Tucker is sounding the alarm about. He talked about how quickly Sanders cleaned up his pocket presence. How he addressed his biggest flaw in just 1 week. 1 week. That's not normal. That's elite responsiveness. That's a quarterback who listens, adapts, and executes. And if that kind of growth can happen in 7 days, why weren't the Browns pouring into him earlier? Why did they wait? That's the haunting question behind this whole situation. Not just, why did it take this long? But, what could have been if they hadn't? How far along could Sanders be right now if he'd gotten first-team attention in August? Would the Browns have more wins? Would he already be hitting another level? We'll never know. What we do know is that Ross Tucker sees what a lot of analysts and fans are now waking up to. That this delay wasn't just a missed opportunity. It was a self-inflicted setback. And the worst part? It wasn't because Shedeur failed to show something. It was because the coaches failed to see it. That's the part that should make every Browns fan nervous. Because if a staff can overlook this, what else are they missing? What other talent is slipping through the cracks because it doesn't fit their cautious playbook? This is how organizations stay stuck in neutral. By playing not to lose. By waiting too long to invest in the players who are ready. And by ignoring the evidence right in front of them until it's impossible to deny. Luckily for the Browns, Shedeur made it undeniable. Now, they're scrambling to make it right. But even if they do, even if he becomes the face of the franchise and leads this team for years, they'll still have to own the fact that they wasted half his rookie season for no good reason. And Ross Tucker is going to make sure they don't forget it. Because he sees what everyone else sees now, a quarterback who could have been further along, stronger, more confident, more integrated. If only they believed in him sooner. And maybe that's the takeaway here. Not just for the Browns, but for every team in the league. When a player shows something, anything, don't wait. Don't delay. Don't assume time will make the answer clearer. If a guy is ready, you play him. You build around him. You don't bury him behind a developmental timeline and call it strategy. Because the clock doesn't stop just because you're being cautious. And sometimes, being too careful is the most reckless move of all. Shedeur Sanders made the most of his moment. The Browns almost didn't give him one. Let that sit. What do you think? Did Kevin Stefanski wait too long to make the obvious call? Could Shedeur Sanders have saved the Browns' weeks, or even the season, if given a shot earlier? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Like this video if you've been shouting at your screen all season. Share it with someone who still thinks rookies should always sit and learn. And if you're into smart football commentary that isn't afraid to call out the nonsense, hit that subscribe button. There's more where this came from.